Hello and welcome to another edition of Film Club, and today I want to review the 2016 horror movie The Purge Election Year. Now I want to start this off by telling you I am a fan of this franchise, however I dislike the first movie a lot. I think that the premise for the idea of The Purge is awesome. It's great on a horror standpoint because it kind of plays into modern day politics a little bit, and honestly now more than ever the idea of something like The Purge is kind of a believable concept. You know, I don't want to get too political in this review. It's scary. It's a scary thought, and I think the first movie was good in terms of setting a good premise. Unfortunately, the execution was bad, and that's why I didn't like the first movie. I also don't care for actor Ethan Hawke. I think he's kind of terrible in everything. So, putting that aside, I went into The Purge Anarchy with very low expectations. I believe, was it a year or 2 years later when that movie came out? It might have been 2 years later. I went into that movie with very low expectations because I was like, I didn't really care for The Purge, but I heard good things about Anarchy, and I loved Purge Anarchy because it gave me what I wanted from the Purge movie, which was I wanted a film where people are out on the streets as this crazy shit's happening. And the problem with the original film is it's all set in the house that these people are living in, and it was kind of a home invasion movie. Those were very popular a couple years ago with movies like You're Next, also a shitty movie by the way. There's another one that I also hate called Funny Games. You ever seen that movie? One of the worst movies I've ever seen. However, this movie, Purge Anarchy, was really, really good, and it established a pretty cool character. I don't remember the character's name, but actor Frank Grillo, you might remember him as his brief stint in Captain America Winter Soldier and Captain America Civil War. He played Crossbones. He's a really good underrated actor, and I thought he did a really good job in Purge Anarchy, but again, the setting of Purge Anarchy was much better and much more interesting. So the follow-up sequel, Purge Election Year, has his character return. Now he's the bodyguard for a new female president candidate who her big primary order of business is she wants to stop the Purge. So when she is elected and becomes the new president, her first order of business is to get rid of the Purge. 18 years ago, on the first night of the Purge, her family was captured by somebody who was, you know, in the Purge, and she essentially was the only person that lived. Everybody else died. She watched her entire family gunned down by some crazy maniac during the Purge. So her motivations for stopping the Purge are well documented. What I liked about this movie is they went all in with the idea of the Purge and just how ridiculous it has gotten. They went all in with it, and I enjoyed it that much more for it. They've turned the Purge into almost like a cult-like thing. It's scary. It's not scary in the terms of, you know, you're gonna pop out of your seat or anything, but it's scary at the dark human nature that is on display in these movies, especially this one. And one of the biggest parts of this movie that's really hard to watch is the very end, which we'll get to. But, you know, they do a good job of going through the different streets and everything while the Purge is going on during the movie, and you kind of see these things firsthand. And it's dark, and it's scary. And again, I'm watching this movie now in 2017. It came out last summer. I just got around to watching it now. Basically, in this movie, Frank Grillo's character is a bodyguard to this female presidential candidate, and the other side wants to kill her, and they're going to use the Purge to do this. And they have a brief scene in like a conference room where all these heads, these are rich upper class Americans, and they basically say, hey, we're going to use the Purge as an excuse to kill her, and then their candidate will become the new president, thus keeping the Purge in place. So this movie is essentially about the 12-hour Purge. The Purge, let me explain the concepts of the Purge. You might be watching this video and go, I don't know what the Purge is. Maybe I've seen a trailer, but I don't know what it is. The Purge is basically is a futuristic, but not very far in the future idea where once a night, America has a 12-hour night period where all sorts of criminal activity are legal, including murder. Anything you can do. And the idea behind this is the crime rate, the economy, all this stuff goes perfectly because one night a year, people are allowed to do whatever they want. There's no wrongdoing. Everything is forgiven. You can go out, you can kill your neighbor, it doesn't matter. But the rest of the year, all those laws are still in place. But because they give people one night to go crazy and let loose and do all this horrific stuff, it has saved the country from the brink of destruction internally. Now, I always thought this was a great concept for a movie series. And again, 4 years ago when this franchise started, it was kind of oh, like, that's crazy, that could never happen. More and more times now it's just like, man, I could see something absurd like this happening, and that's what makes it more frightening as you watch it. But those are the basic, that's the premise for The Purge. And throughout these movies, it's gotten more ridiculous because there's been almost like a cult-like aspect that is formed around this idea of the Purge. You know, these people are always talking about their new founding fathers and how they created this idea of the Purge, and this got passed in law. And I would think it would be interesting. I know they're making another Purge movie. It's supposed to be a prequel. I think right now it's titled The Purge: The Island. And I think it's going to be more like a battle royale type movie. But I've always been interested to see like the beginning of this, and that's what I would like from a prequel Purge movie now, is give me a movie that explains to me how the country got to the point where they decided on something called the Purge. So, but getting back to the premise of this movie, so Frank Grillo's character, he basically is going to, he puts the presidential candidate in a safe house for the night, and he and a team of people are going to keep her safe for the 12 hours of the Purge. Obviously, you know, there's an internal betrayal, and that goes to shit, so they have to be on the run. There's another story, and these two stories intersect, where there is an owner of a local convenience store, and he and his two, like, counterparts are, they end up having to defend their local convenience store from the Purge, because in this futuristic society they sell something called Purge insurance, and what this does is if your business gets destroyed by the Purge, you're not having to pay for it. And the very night before the Purge, he gets a phone call from this insurance company that says, hey, guess what, your insurance premiums have gone up, we're not covering you. So now he has to take matters in his own hands, and he has to defend his store. Now, the story of him and his crew, and the story of this presidential candidate and Frank Grillo's bodyguard character do intersect in the middle of this movie. I thought they did a good job of intersecting these characters and then bringing it to more of a head. The thing that I thought about this movie in comparison to the previous Purge is, like, I enjoy the shots of these crazy people killing people in the streets. They always wear creepy masks. I mean, this is a scary thought. These people get really into killing other people, and there's always horrific scenes of people doing nefarious shit to kill people. There's one scene in this movie where this guy has 3 women strapped to the front of a car, and he's literally just driving super fast at other cars and just hitting walls and killing. Like, it's nuts. It's really nuts. But what I enjoy about this franchise, as opposed to some of the more recent horror franchises from the last 5 or 10 years, like think of something like Saw, is, well, it does show people being killed in brutal fashion. It's not overly gory, like a Saw or something. You know, one of the things I really enjoyed about the original Saw franchise was those first 2 movies had their gore tactics, but it was more about the story and the setting of Saw. And then when you got to the 3rd Saw movie, they just decided, screw it, we need to show every facet of gore, and I just didn't care for it anymore, and I stopped after 3. What I like about this franchise, through all 3 movies, they never went that far. Like, yes, there are scenes of people being killed, but it's more about the horror of these people in almost a cult-like sense, and that's what's scary. So, to spoil the end of the movie, and I'm gonna give this movie 1 thumb up. I'm not gonna give it 2. I don't think it's the greatest movie I've ever seen or anything like that. Whereas between these 3, I would give the second movie 2 thumbs up and the first movie 2 thumbs down. Or I would give the first movie 1 thumbs down because I like the premise of it, but I thought it was overall bad. This movie I'm giving 1 thumbs up because I think it's a very solid direct sequel to the previous one, and I think it's a good end to a trilogy. And like I said, the next Purge movie supposedly is a prequel. So I'm glad that maybe we're looking at this and going, we can't really go further than this, because they end this movie in a pretty good way. Basically, in this movie, what happens is eventually there's the other side that's in this political argument wants to capture this woman who is the presidential candidate that wants to stop the purge, and they're going to kill her. They have these higher up middle class people that are in politics have what's called a purge mass, where they sit in this church and they talk their occult lingo about the purge and everything. It's actually really hard for me personally, being religious. It was hard for me to watch these couple scenes in this movie because it's just such a cult, and it's really kind of disgusting when you watch it, but it's very effective in that way. But what happens is their whole plan is they're going to get this woman and they're going to purge her at this purge mass. So they eventually kidnap her and get her away from the bodyguard and bring her back to this church. Well, I use the term church loosely. And they are getting ready to purge her. And this is the part of the movie that I thought was the most effective in terms of being creepy, is they have this almost cult-like mass, and they're just talking about all these different things. You know, like our new founding fathers started this. They're all chanting these things about purge and purify. They kill this other guy. And they keep talking about, like, God's going to accept you up in heaven. This is what he wants us to do and purge. It's all really fascinating and dark and twisted, and I appreciate the movie for that. They took a premise and they really drive into that premise, and that's what I like about these movies, especially these more recent two. What's the thing to note about this movie is it ends on a good note. It ends with, obviously, they get in there, they kill these people, they get out, everything. And I don't want to spoil everything about the movie. The end of the movie is they let the other candidate win, and then that woman wins at the end of this movie. They have the presidential election, she wins. So essentially the purge is over. So the movie ends on a good note, and I'm happy that it does. So I look at it and go, well, this is a good trilogy of movies that's over now. It started kind of rough, and it's gotten better as it's gone on. Another interesting thing to note when I was looking up information about this trilogy of movies is that each one has done better at the box office than the last one. So they're not going to stop this franchise anytime soon. So again, Purge election year, I enjoyed it. I'm giving it 1 thumbs up. If I were reviewing all 3 of them, just to give you guys an idea, I think the first movie is a thumbs down. I think the second movie is 2 thumbs up, and I think this one is just 1 thumb up. So I like this movie. I think it's a great sequel to the previous Purge movie, and honestly, I would tell you, just Wikipedia the first movie if you've never seen these ones, and then watch the second and the third one, and you'll get a really good sense of what these movies offer. I think there's some of the better horror/action movies in the last couple of years. I really enjoyed this franchise. I look forward to what the prequel does. I hope it goes more into who these founding fathers are and why they decided to do this Purge stuff. So I'm interested to see. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this edition of Film Club. Hope you remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.